Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Break free from the forces holding you back. Get the life you deserve. Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, decrease depression, and start living your full potential. Thousands have used Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory, an evidence-based behavioral health breakthrough with incredible life-changing results. Getting rid of past trauma, having fulfilling relationships, increasing earnings, and living their best life. Now, the Foojan app is available to everyone. The app is Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory in the palm of your hand. Download the Foojan app today.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inner Voice podcast, a heartfelt chat with my guests and you beautiful listeners and viewers. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine. I'm a psychotherapist and author and the originator of the awareness integration theory. It's so great to be with all of you today. I want to tell all of you wonderful coaches or people who want to be coaches, or you have been coaches for a long time, whether you're a business coach or life coach, we have an amazing course for you. It's called Essentials of Coaching. So I love to bring the essentials of coaching for you. I've been a therapist and a coach, a life coach for 30 years. I have my colleague, Dr. Nicole Jafari, who's going to be with us also, and she's a master coach and teaches other coaches. And together, we're bringing you a whole particular curriculum, which is experiential. You get to practice. We'll teach you all aspects of coaching and listening and talking and specific measures of how to create your coaching businesses. And then, we also have the awareness integration theory that gives you an access of exactly how to go and be with your client and take them from point A to point B with, reaching all of their goals, how to be in the present moment, clear the past, and, create an amazing future, not only for yourself as a business coaches and life coaches, but also for your clients and all the goals they want. So contact me at foojanzeine@gmail.com. For all of you psychotherapists who like to be certified as a therapist and be on Foojan app as the therapists or coaches who are familiar and certified by the awareness integration model, please let us know. I love for all of you to be there. Remember, we're going to take this to 8 billion people. We need all of you. We need all of us to collaborate to be able to take this model everywhere in order to create an amazing life and fulfilling life for everyone who's on earth. So we're going to do this together. In this episode, I am excited to chat with Shuaib Ahmed, a legal defense attorney, the owner and the president of ASA Law Group and ASA Law Group, Inc. He is the author of a new book, Personal Business, using the ASA Way to build an inspired and purposeful team. He's offering a tried and tested leadership approach that prioritizes the individual workers, and you can find it as books.forbes.com. And we had an amazing conversation, and it's about how to be you, how to be authentic, how to be all of you, your vulnerabilities, your strengths, your resiliency, the best of you, and the parts of you that need caring, and how as a culture of caring and commitment, we can come together and be ourselves and be out there powerfully together and build a wonderful, wonderful community that can concentrate on working and moving forward together. So I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that you enjoy as much as I did. Now, subscribe to my podcast and my YouTube channel. Connect with me through my website, foojanzeine.com, or any of the social medias. I'm all over LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, X, Twitter. So please contact me. Share with me your thoughts, your views. Share with me the topics you want to learn about. I love hearing from you. Really, I love hearing from you. So connect with me. Now, without further ado, here's Shuaib Ahmed.
Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, and decrease depression. Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory has helped thousands like you get incredible life-changing results. The Foojan app gives you her evidence-based treatment in the palm of your hand. Download today.
Welcome to the show. Shuaib Ahmed, it's so nice to have you.
Very nice to have you, Doctor.
Well, you are a legal defense attorney, but you turned into an amazing author. Your book is out, Personal Business. First, just let us know how come. Why did you do it? Which is part of like a chapter actually in your book. Why do it? So I'm asking you, why do this?
Well, I was probably just naive enough to do it. No, I really did it because it was a part of a long journey that started a long time ago. And this whole notion of personal versus professional, et cetera, just kind of became, something that people just had two views on. So anytime I went to the bookstore, anytime I went to look at resources, it was, you got your personal section on personal, bettering yourself, personal development. And then you had the business aspect of it, whether it be marketing, finance, leadership books and things like that. And I just never found a resource that almost incorporated both of them. And I found that they're actually more interrelated than ever right now because of post-COVID. But even before COVID, I just felt those two aspects of your life are so intertwined that there was really no resource that really talked about that. And so that was one of my main reasons of writing the book.
It's beautiful. And yes, it is so true that all of these really affect each other. And it's interesting that the arrow is more potent when your personal experiences, personal life, whether it's your attitude or your relationships, when it doesn't work, whether it's your health, it doesn't work, your relationships don't work, it's going to really, really affect your business. And that arrow is much stronger and in some sense. So can you share a little bit about that? Of your journey, maybe, and how you decided that this impacts it so much that you needed to share and write for others?
Yeah, absolutely. And, in the book, I kind of talk about my original experience, with how personal kind of impacts your professional. After law school, I concentrated on litigation, which basically means I took a lot of courses that talked about trials and things like that. And so I was pretty prepared. My first job out of law school, was working for a plaintiff firm. And we were trial lawyers, and I was handed an assignment to go argue a motion in court, and that was my very first one. However, the substance of the motion wasn't really challenging. I kind of knew what the arguments were going to be. I was pretty well prepared. And so on the day of the hearing, I was there and just waiting for the case to be called, and I was pretty confident. I knew what to say. I kind of anticipated what the other attorney was going to argue. I had the case law down. I knew the rules. I was good to go. And then our case finally got called. And when I went up there and opposing counsel started his argument, and he started making his, foundational arguments, which I knew exactly what he was going to argue. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I got this. This is exactly what I thought was going to happen. Anyhow, when he was making the argument, the way he was making it, and he was so dramatic and very theatrical, both with his gestures and his voice, almost screaming at certain parts of his argument. And when that started happening, for whatever reason, it kind of really triggered something inside of me where I started to get, really nervous and almost started shaking. And I could feel myself just closing up. I couldn't remember the arguments anymore that I prepared for. And even though I was looking at the judge as if, I was present, I really wasn't present. And then when the judge then said, counsel, it's your turn for the rebuttal, nothing came out of my mouth. And it was a point where the judge looked at me and said, Mr. Ahmed, make your argument. and I couldn't. I knew what to say. I was very prepared, but there was something that happened in that courtroom. And then afterwards, when opposing counsel came up to me and said, "Hey, Shuaib, what happened?" And I said, "I have no clue what the hell happened. There's something that happened in that courtroom that just stuck with me ever since then." And that almost kind of led to my journey of trying to figure out what the hell happened that day. And why did I react the way that I reacted? And it's kind of dissecting that, because that is a clear story of how personal impacts your professional and vice versa.
Absolutely. It is so true that when we are not necessarily cleaned up inside, that anything from the outside can trigger. And the minute that emotional trigger is there, we go into this like personal tunnel that we have no access almost to the reality of the outside. So
Right.
Really checking in, and part of your book says, and one of your chapter is, be true to yourself. Like really look at who you are, what your strengths are, and honor it in a sense. So can you share a little bit about what you mean by be true to yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question, because one of the things I've realized is in corporate America, at least, it's almost this, sense of an award, if you will, if you're able to kind of leave your baggage at home. And then when you're at work, you're expected to be this person, that person. Nobody wants to really know or even hear about your baggage. And so even though you probably are going through something really traumatic in your personal life, don't talk about it at work. Leave your crap at home. And the people that can do that are looked at as people who are really good leaders, who are very focused on the task. They can handle it. Otherwise, you bring that baggage into work, there's this stigma that you're distracted, or that you can't handle the stress, you can't handle the pressure. And so a lot of times we almost look at this trait as something that's very admirable. Like, hey, you can go to work and you can shut everything else off and you can focus on your task. That's great. But the fact of the matter is, that's not really how long-term success works. At some point, that stuff will catch up to you. And it does come in interplay with your work and how you treat people and how you approach every single day at work. And part of the challenge is being authentic, right? And you hear about this a lot in a lot of books that talks about authenticity, being true to yourself. But when it comes to transcending beyond your personal life into your professional life, all of a sudden, all that authenticity, it's why don't you say that when you get back home, and then at work, you have these expectations, you got to do it. And part of the challenge with that is, if you're not authentic 100%, whether you be at home or whether you be at work, you almost lose a sense of who you are. And that's what was happening to me. In my book, I do talk about my personal journey because it serves as a foundation of my leadership thought. And one of the personal journeys I talk about just being authentic, free from cultural norms, free from societal norms, free from, your professional expectations. It's almost like you're being a different people at different times, right? You're, Shuaib at work, and then you're Shuaib at home. You're Shuaib with your kids. You're fun Shuaib with your friends. So you have all these different personalities, almost depending upon what context you're in. And obviously there's some value into that, obviously, because when, in certain contexts, certain behaviors are expected, there's certain protocols, I get that. But when you're so many different personalities in different situations, you almost lose a sense of who you really are. And that's what really happened to me, because when I was at work as a lawyer, I'm expected almost to be very robotic, non-emotional. Nothing can get to me. I'm this, aggressive litigator. And I can't show any emotions or anything like that. And it's almost looked at as a weakness. But what I found out is, when you're able to incorporate a true, authentic person of who you are, regardless of what situation or context you're in, you may find yourself on an island by yourself, which is okay. because it beats the heck out of, coming home and all of a sudden being like, okay, I'm done with that. Now I can be this person. And also I've found that it created a lot of authentic relationships. And I feel like that's what's been lacking, especially after post-COVID. We're not in person as much as we used to be. We don't have that, one-on-one time, like FaceTime at least, that we once had. And once you're your authentic self, there's people that may not like you, and that's okay. But there are going to be people who genuinely like you in terms of what your story is and how to connect. One of the blessings of writing this book, I've had I've had some friends over 20 years who have, after writing my book, came to me and said, hey, did you know about my personal journey? And they started talking about things. And I've known these people for a lifetime, or at least I thought I did. And these journeys of these stories that I was hearing, and I thought to myself, boy, when I was growing up, I wish someone came to me and told me, hey, I've kind of been through what you've gone through. This is not abnormal. You're not some crazy kid that's having these weird thoughts in your head. And so just having those conversations and those dialogues, now I'm connected on a whole different level with these people, because we were able to sit down and have that very authentic conversation.
So true what you're saying, because I developed a psychology model called awareness integration. And one of the things that I see and have seen in this past 30 years is exactly what you say, where, we develop our value systems, behaviors, thoughts, and emotions based on our role. So when we have a role as, a child to our parents, or a member of this kind of a society, whether it's an American or an Indian or an Arab or Iranian or Hispanic or, European, then we form to that when we're in this society. Then, we have an intimate relationship, then we form our, who we are as a wife or a husband, or a mate. Then we're a parent and we, do that. And then we go into, like you said, a type of a business, and then we follow all of that. Sometimes it's interesting because if we're not connected to the core self, like the true self that you were talking about, which it can actually have some certain values and certain belief systems that it upholds regardless of, all of the roles that it's in there, then we get fragmented, we get separated. So you could walk in and be an attorney or a corporate person or a leader and, really just hold on to a whole different set of values and, be brutal. Like I've talked to businessmen as well, being brutal and lying is okay in this instance, but, if you do the same thing at home, you're going to get a different type of a consequence. I've had, worked with a lot of attorneys. I have a huge population of attorneys that I work with. And one of the things they get used to in 8 hours to 10 hours of a fighting mode, always looking at the strategies and looking at, non-trust issues and looking at the angles where they could win the case. And they come exactly the same way when they're home with their mate or their children, and that strategy doesn't work anymore. However, when you look at how you have great skills in each one of these roles and how you could incorporate them, and like you in your book, you also talk about a holistic approach. If I can bring all of my skills, all of my strengths, and unify them, and then have the ability to see and assess which one is appropriate in what role, but at least I am coming from a holistic place. I'm not fragmented. I'm not, all kind of separated as if I don't have access to my other part. But if I have access to all of my parts and then see, yes, at this court, at this meeting, at this space, at this vulnerable and intimate moment, which, from where am I sharing? Then you're coming from that wholeness and bringing your true self with all of your skills at every location. And that is what makes us, what you share about an authentic person that can be anywhere. And you don't, this also minimizes a hell of a lot of anxiety, right? Because you're not hiding anything. You're not separate from yourself. And your confidence is high. You're solid. You're kind of like grounded as you move into different spaces of business or personal. Is that what your experience has been?
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you a good compass when you're making decisions, whether it be personal decisions with your kids or you're making professional decisions with your organization. It's different types of decisions, but the compass is the same, because that's coming from you internally. And part of the challenge, is, I think nowadays, especially now, people want to share their stories. People are going through a hell of a lot, more than ever. Every single week, it's almost something else going on in our crazy world, right? I mean, you just turn the TV on and it's just a bunch of negative messages that you're just being hit upon. And then on top of that, you're dealing with your own, personal journey, you're dealing with your own personal struggles. And I think people are looking for ways of how do I, because I think the loneliness, and then there's research upon research now on how lonely people are now, right? Especially now post-COVID, and the loneliness and the thoughts that go into your mind as you're just working from home and don't really have a lot of human interaction. And I think people do want to be vulnerable. And I think people do want to talk about the stories. I think people want to be authentic. But I think there's a misalignment between what individuals want and the work environment. Because for whatever reason, that environment has slightly shifted, but because of post-COVID, but it truly hasn't. I understand, I run a business, I run 3 of them. So I understand the importance of bottom line. I understand the revenues. I understand, the P&L statements and all that. I get it. But, there's something else going on here. And because your workforce has permanently changed, but yet your approach to running the business and the atmosphere that you're creating hasn't changed as much as the workforce is demanding at this point. And so yeah, I've heard individuals say, Shuaib, I love what you have to say, that's great, I would love to be myself 100% of the time, but when I go into work, if I have these conversations with my employer, for instance, I don't want to be left out of a promotion or an opportunity because the employer is going to look at me in a different way. Or that it's so ingrained into our mind that leave your shit at home, like, just don't even talk about it. And if you do, there's this sense of, oh yeah, I get it, everybody's going through something, it's almost blown off, and people are just very cautious of that. So it's almost a distrust between, yeah, I want to do this, but can I really? And how is that going to impact my well-being in the future?
I think that there's a distinct difference, and share with me what you hear from me and what your experience is. There's a difference between if I bring my vulnerabilities or emotional holds and kind of bring it into a work or a professional arena, and I kind of like dump it on the table and then wait for other people to take care of it, or that I'm bringing both. I'm bringing my vulnerability, but I'm also bringing my strength. So it's more like sharing that this is what I'm going through. I just wanted to share it and be out so you have an understanding of what I'm going through, but I'm still committed to doing this, because that's, and I'm committed to take care of myself as I'm doing this. And I request your support in these ways, whether it's for my emotions or my commitments. So I think some people shiver around bringing their vulnerability because they think that's the only thing that, that they're putting on the table. And what if you bring all of it? Like, you bring your vulnerability, but you also have a lot of strength. That's why you're in that place and you're in, success. That's why you have that role. So if you bring both of them, right, as you share, like your holistic self is not there, not just your vulnerability, then that's different. Yes, you could bring your vulnerability to me as a therapist and just we'll delve into it. I'll take care of you in the session. But taking your vulnerability only and putting it on, kind of lap of everybody else, now they don't know what to do with it. They're like, take it home. I don't know what to do with your vulnerability. Handle it. But if we're sharing it as if we are handling it, but we're just sharing it. And that takes me to a beautiful title of a part of your book, which is having a really effing conversation, right? And that's what it is. It's like, I'm a human, I'm not a robot. And so probably half of the things that I'm sharing with you, you probably have also experienced sometime in your life. So you can relate. When I'm afraid, you've been afraid before. If I'm anxious, when I care about your admiration, or, what if you think I'm a fraud? What if da 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 da? You've probably experienced exactly the same things in other scenarios. So we can actually connect in the human aspect of ourselves and then work collaboratively to, kind of like boost and collaborate, move forward for, our companies or whatever relationship we have. So say what you mean by having a real effing conversation.
Yeah, so that chapter really comes from my personal journey of, once, my book kind of talks about going through a divorce and things like that, on my personal journey. And one of the things I've learned from that experience is just trying to find out who you really are. Like, who are you, right? I'm not talking about in the context of, who are you in front of family, front, like just who. So if you were in a room by yourself and nobody can hear you and you can describe yourself and the values that you stand for, like, what would that be? And for me, it was all my values came from some external source, right? So for instance, I didn't, partake in, for instance, drinking alcohol or something because of a cultural norm or a religious norm, or I believed in certain things because, culturally it was expected of that. Or when you grew up, your parents kind of instilled that into you and you almost never questioned it. You just went with it, right? And you just kept on following it. That's just something you've always done. You've gone through it, whether it be, whatever influences are around you. But if you just stopped and just erased all of that and said, who are you really? And for me, I remember, I talk about this in my book, but I remember taking my phone out and starting to describe who the F am I. And I literally had nothing to type because I truly didn't know. Now I could tell you who was I in certain context. This is who I am, ABC, depending upon what's happening or whatever. But if I were to take everything away and just say, who are you? What would you say? And when you're describing who you are, you also have to look at where's that coming from? Is that really coming from you within? Or is it coming from some external source that you're trying to appease? Because almost most of the time, that's what we're trying to do. And that is the most liberating feeling, is when you can have that honest conversation with yourself, free of guilt, free of shame. Forget what society thinks about what your thoughts are, or forget what your family's going to think, or whatever institution you follow, but just you as an individual. If you can figure that out, I can guarantee you that'll be the most liberating feeling, because I know it was for me. Because once I answered that, then it opened up a whole different chapter for me, whole different decisions, whole different values, whole different way of approaching things. And it was my way and nobody else's. And it made sense to me because, it came from within. So it may not agree with certain institutions, cool. It may not agree with certain ideologies, great. But I can make those decisions coming from myself because that's who I am.
Absolutely. Everyone, Personal Business by Shuaib Ahmed, using the ASA Way to build an inspired, purposeful team. Now, you talked about holding values, and you talk about that in your book, about how to find your values and hold them and own them and be accountable to them. So when you own those values and you take a stand on them and are accountable for your behaviors and how you move forward, that's how you, not only you're doing that for yourself, but also creating a team that, as a leader, you're holding your team to this, either the same values or a shared value that everybody has together, and then, keeping themselves accountable and everybody else keeping the team accountable, and moving forward from that. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So when we talk about values, I guess I should quantify a little bit and say it's really authentic values, values that are important to you as an individual, not necessarily values that, that come from other sources aside from yourself. So as an individual, when you figure out what those values are, the decisions you'll make in life will be made through those lens. Otherwise, if you A, don't know your values, or B, they're not authentic values, situations in life will become very, very, that much more difficult to navigate, because you know what you kind of want to do, but then you kind of don't want to do that. You're almost in between, you're a little wishy-washy. So I kind of apply that also in the business sense as an organization. What's your value system as an organization? And every decision that you make, whether it be financial or non-financial, has to be made within those contexts. And so I talk about in the book about certain times where there are certain decisions that had to be made at the organizations that in the organization that fit in with our value system, however, gave up short-term revenue. And that's hard as a business owner. Giving up any revenues is difficult. But when you make those kind of decisions, it creates a messaging to the rest of your team that, okay, this is what this company stands for. And it's not just me saying, hey, this is our value system, everybody follow it. It's the employees will observe your actions more than your words, because they've heard it all before, right? Every job they've been to, every job interview they've been to, they've been told almost the same thing. It's a great place. We recognize individuals and all that kind of stuff. But when the organization makes a decision, that has a very profound effect on the messaging you're sending to your employees and to your entire team. And so I think the best way is know your personal values, find an employer that shares that same values, and that is going to make a really dynamic team.
Last, what you say is commit to your commitments. So when you set up, and that, still kind of like follows the conversation of accountability, that if you say that these are my commitments, whether on a personal level or whether on a team level or on a leadership level for your company, if that you're setting up commitments, then you actually do need to commit your commitments, or you're not going to be authentic in that way.
Right. That's correct. And one of the examples is, COVID by itself, the actual year of COVID wasn't too bad for us. It was the 2 years subsequent to COVID that was pretty brutal on our business. And I started to, obviously, as a business owner, the first thing you're looking at is financials, right? You're looking at projections, where we're going with this, a lot of shutdowns, and we represent strictly corporate clients. And we, they're Fortune 10 clients. And the reason I say that is because when they shut down, it's a big impact on our business. And so a lot of the corporations were grounded during COVID. Nobody was working and things like that. And so obviously it was impacting our inventory levels at the law firm. And obviously, if we don't have that work coming in, attorneys don't really have much work to work on. Your revenue stops. It's a whole situation. But I did look at that, but I also looked at what's going on with people, like what's going on with my team, and what are the certain things people are dealing with during COVID. And even the numbers didn't look well at all at that point. I knew that I had to kind of reach out to my team members and say, hey, I'm in this with you. I understand from a business sense what's happening, but it's also very important to me that I'm able to provide resources to my employees of trying to, mentally help them and say, we're in this together, And so one of the things we did was, we had closed up the office, a couple of months afterwards, and we closed it up for a day and just we took everybody to kind of like a spa day of just being away from everything and just getting that relaxation and being able to kind of rewire and things like that. Now, obviously, financially, that was a hit, right? We're already, going well within the red at that point. But for me, the cost of that is minimal compared to having my best employees come back fully charged. And again, it's messaging. So when we made that decision, it created a huge message that, you know what, our employer does look out for us, that we're just not someone that he's concerned for his bottom line.
Beautiful. Yes. So when you're looking at the commitment of the company, how do you, based on your ASA way, how do you as leaders come to a meeting, being authentic, having real conversations, living your values and bringing it, and commit to your commitment in a nutshell?
From a business aspect, that needs to come from top and bottom. And what I mean by that is, you know, when employers create that kind of atmosphere, creates that message, it's going to make employees feel more and more comfortable of kind of coming forward and saying things. One of the things I do is one of the things I emphasize at the firm is my job is not to, be this person that's just going to either reward you or punish you. That's not my job. My job is to put you in the best position to succeed. In order for me to do that, yes, I do know your strengths, but I also need to know what's happening outside of this business world, because that's going to impact it. And so if I have a case where, we're talking $1 million exposures, and I look at one of my best attorneys, for instance, and on an ideal day, I would probably assign it to him or her. But if I know that there's other things, this person may be dealing with, by me assigning that case to that person, I may be just, exasperating everything else that's happening with this person. And I'm not putting that person in the best place to succeed at all. But I can only do that if I create a culture where employees feel comfortable enough to tell me those things. Now, they're not telling me that because they're just trying to put baggage on me. They're telling me that so that as the coach, as a leader, I know what I need to do to make sure that this person is going to be in the best position to succeed on this case and in their career. Sometimes you got to hit the pause button. That's okay. You need that. Because I can't afford my best employees burning out just because they feel like they have to keep going no matter what's happening. And so it's really a top-bottom approach. So it's not just employers doing it, it's also employees to look at your own value system. You need to be honest with yourself. And so we need to do this together, and that's the only way this thing is going to work, because if there's any sort of a distrust either way, you're not going to be able to align that leadership thought together. And little things, when we start meetings, for instance, I will start meeting with something of vulnerability about what's happening with me, right? And so, for instance, I tell people, let's go around and just do one simple phrase: I am feeling blank. Just give me that blank word. And there's 28 of us at the Illinois office. So, we can't just sit there and talk, but I say, I am feeling blank. Just give me your blank word. And people just say they're one words. But then just from the word that they use, other team members kind of get it. I get it. And other team members also get it. And so when you're working together and you understand the context of your team, you can put yourselves in a really, really good position to succeed.
It's a culture of caring and commitment. So it's just human caring with each other, and know that we're not just there as robots, but we bring all of ourselves into any space, and kind of acknowledging that, that I come into this space every morning not as a blank state, but I come in with all my other personal things. So it's like, okay, let's just first be human. Yeah, we all have these feelings, we all have these states, and now what are we committing to? How do we want to be in today? What are we focusing on? So it's an acknowledgement and honoring, and then yet putting the focus on what we're accountable for and our commitment. Everyone, get this book, Personal Business by Shuaib Ahmed, using the ASA Way to build an inspired, purposeful team. In 1 minute, anything we haven't shared that you really, really want people to know?
Well, the book obviously is available on all different platforms, from iBooks to Kindle to audiobooks, things like that. So it's very accessible. It's on Amazon and things like that. But I encourage people to read it because there's a conversation that we're still not having as people. And, especially at a time where it's kind of expected to have these conversations, there's something holding all of us back from having these real authentic conversations. And while I was writing the book, it was almost therapeutic for me as well, because it was really also an opportunity for me to just come out and say, hey, this is who I am. I just got really sick of living, different, playing different parts and different roles and things like that. And when I started the law firm, I remember telling myself that when people walk into my office, I don't want them to feel like they're in a law firm. That was my goal. Because when you walk in a law firm, it's not the most comfortable feeling. It's not the most welcoming place. So we've created a culture at my firm. So for instance, everybody has a playlist. Okay. Every day we play somebody else's playlist in the office. And, normally that's not something law firms do. But the reason I do that is to create that culture that we're more than just, attorneys who are just spitting out rules and case law and things like that. It just humanizes everybody. And so I really encourage people to read it. And I think it'll cause people to not only reflect on, the whole business aspect of it, but I think more importantly, it'll make people reflect on themselves. At a time where I think we need to have this conversation. And I think it's well overdue of having these honest conversations. And like I've mentioned before, this book has caused a ton of people to come forward, people I've known, people I've never met, and share their stories. And it's amazing what stories there are out there. And in the book, I talk about growing up in domestic violence, growing up in, and being homeless for a little bit, and growing up and not having certain resources when I was a little kid. And I always felt something was wrong with me. I really did. I almost felt like that there was something in me that just wasn't right. And that's why I'm in the situation I'm in. And had someone just come forward and shared some stories about themselves, or even if, I could cross someone who I had the ability to share stories with, and they say, hey, Shuaib, that's normal, man. Like, you may think it's not, but it is. It's just nobody's talking about it. And so just having these conversations with your family and friends, I think there's a great value in that as well.
Absolutely. And thank you. Thank you for bringing both of your vulnerability, authenticity, your strength, all of it today for us and with all of our viewers and the audience.
Thank you for having me.
Great pleasure to have you. Where can people find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. If you could look up ASA Law Group, Google it. We're all over the web. I'm also, like I said, I'm on LinkedIn. You can search me by my name, or you can search me by the book, or search me by my company. So it shouldn't be too hard to find me. Beautiful.
Shuaib Ahmed, everyone. It was a great pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, and decrease depression. Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory has helped thousands like you get incredible life-changing results. The Foojan app gives you her evidence-based treatment in the palm of your hand. Download today.